So again, pencils. I'm gonna skim here because there's lots of, I grouped it sort of, so here at the bottom left, you see where I brought in, it's on toned paper, and I'm using gel pens, and it's from Life. It's a model in class, but just with the scribble. And what I love about the scribble is it's non-specific. I'm just moving around, and it's like working, it's almost like working a wireframe, right? But it's just this constant buildup, but without having to say, okay, I'm going to do the head now, I'm going to do the eye, I'm going to do the, it's like just moving, and it all just starts to gel and come together. It's really cool, a lot of fun. On the right is a dip pen, just a dip pen, and making marks. Pencil with a little charcoal on top. Fountain pen with a brush pen with the same ink on the left. On the right is an acrylic painting of my then girlfriend asleep. She never moved. It was amazing. I was able to do this thing without her moving. So all this stuff is from Life here. That too was pastel, and then it's a multimedia thing. Tar, roofing tar, oils, wax. That's what these are as well. That's an oil painting on the bottom of my son there, horizontal. Watercolor, and you can see here where I've gone in with a razor blade and scraped out highlights like snow catching his hair and beard and stuff. That's acrylics. That was a demo I did for the Joe Kubert School years and years ago. There you go, big fat brush. I did a quick sort of rendering, a little bit of a head, and then just said, all right, screw that. I'm going to get out a big fat, it's a fat brush with this antelope brown ink and just, but that scumble, you can't get that, they have brushes that imitate it, but it's not the same thing. Same here on the left. So all this stuff is dip pen. There's those African folktale sketches, and that's what all this stuff is. I'm all about, I like diving in and here's blues drawings, sketchbook drawings. I like letting whatever happens, happens. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to know what's going to happen. That sense of serendipity, that's John Hurt there as a scribble. And that's Skip James. And that is, I don't know who that is. There's my sketch. Remember I told the story about Johnny Winter looking at the painting and me listening to him play for 5 hours? I filled a sketchbook full of drawings that day, and that's him playing, telling stories and everything. I had a sketchbook on me. That's me. Self-portraits for the blues book. Dip pen and a brush. Back when I was young. Jack Owens. More blues. There's Mississippi John Hurt. Mississippi John. Dip pen. A little brush, dry brush on that trunk over here. And then charcoal in the background. Dip pen with watercolor. That's just a brush drawing of cotton fields. Wash, hitting it with water. There's my drawing of John Hurt's Shotgun Shack. Dip pen with a brush and water. Dry brush. Some of the blues World War I. So dip pen drawing, and then come in with the body color, watercolor, and then charcoal on top of that. You can see the razor blade action again down here to make barbed wire. Just taking a razor blade and just scraping that paper. Because white, that's different than trying to put white on top. That looks like you would actually get cut if you grabbed it, right? Sketchbook drawings. There's that scribble again, that non-specific scribble, which is a lot of fun. So this is like a drawing I did that I filmed and did a how-to demo for Kwang Ho's Made for Artists program. That's the initial free brush drawing, and then I added wash, and then I added the highlights. So this is the war section that we're working on. So these are drawn with that actual color crayon. And you can see it can be incredibly sensitive, right? And that was drawn on my old sketchbooks, which were, you can see the laid paper quality coming through there, certain texture of the paper, how they made it. Splatter, that's fun stuff. More sketchbook stuff. Splatter. That's a monotype on the left, and then I went in with oils and touched it up a little bit. This brush drawing here, that figure is actually, I can't even go there, smaller than what it's looking like. It's a very small little brush drawing. The piece on the left, I wish it was right way around, but that's a layout I did I was up in the running for Schindler's List to do as a graphic novel. And I did a final piece, a spread, but they ended up missing their window. And so no one got the gig. Man, I wanted that gig so bad. Anyway, this is what the bottom panel there on the right is watching Band of Brothers on TV. Same here, this soldier on the right, that's watching Band of Brothers. There's those crayons again on the right. So, what I mentioned previously too, one of the big benefits for me of drawing on the subway was that I had to draw fast and try to capture the life in front of me quickly. And so when I work from photo reference, I tend to treat that photograph as a live individual who's getting ready to walk off the stage. They're going to leave in a few minutes. I got to get it down, right? And that I honestly believe, also just from all my life drawing that I've done and continue to do throughout the years, and now it helps me imbue all the things I'm working with real life. People believe, I've been told so many times, like, wow, like I really thought you were there, that was drawn from life. And that's gratifying because I want this stuff to feel alive, But a big chunk of it comes from kind of drawing, like committing to the line I'm putting down and drawing quickly. This is some of the first illustration work I did when I got out of school, working for this mercenary magazine. These were the pieces I was doing at the time. That stuff. This actually was one of the samples I gave them to show that I could do this stuff. And it's just drawn straight with a felt tip pen. 1984. Yeah, it was just right out of school. But even something as simple as this, like just, there's depth of field to it, there's a good solidity to it, and yet the gesture is alive, right? And it's not detailed by any way, shape, or means, right? So that was my original sketch in my sketchbook that had nothing to do with Enemy Ace. And then they hit me up to do a new cover. And then I showed y'all that sketch, which was based off this, to then come up with this painting, which that's a 4 by 6 foot oil. And then they cropped it for the cover. And here these were scanned as color, although I think I flipped them to grayscale, looks like. But you can see the way it was put together. Like, so there's a brush drawing I did here. This is that, like, just free brush drawing I did of this figure. Boom, boom. You can see it's pretty lively, quick brush thing. And then I went in and I simplified that line with white acrylic. And then I restated a few lines in black acrylic. And then I came in with a toothbrush and black acrylic and splattered the whole thing, which created value. And then came in with white acrylic to then add a light source to that. But you could scan these as line art, which is really cool, and they become really graphic. And then I would do also sheets of tracing paper, like using, like, not tracing paper, but marker comp paper and stuff, which is 100% rag. I could lay it over this and do with a big fat brush where I want color to go. And then I could scan those as line art, put them in the same document, flip them all to RGB, and colorize everything. Make them multiply layers and stuff, which maybe I've got the way that looks in here, maybe not. I'll have to see. That top one on the left, rather, I mean, it was you're looking at them sideways. That was going to be my letters column, right? It's like it's called Iron Rations coming in. So here's some of the original sketching that I was doing before for Enemy Ace in those sketchbooks. So I was training myself to go straight with a pen or with a brush. And you can see on the right, that's a brush drawing. I wasn't doing any penciling or any setup. It was like, let me just go in, let me just commit, right? That's what that stuff is. Same here. Straight with a pen or a brush, and whatever happens, happens. But it taught me a lot, man. It taught me how to commit, taught me more about shape, and how to really manipulate value with watercolor. This was also one of those original sketches. Of course, you can see I got Rembrandt on the brain, right? Another little brush drawing on the right. Watercolors. Another splatter piece. That's for that Kickstarter project. Let's zoom ahead. So this one here on the right was drawn with a putty knife. The one on the left was done with rollers. So that one on the left is about 18 by 24. It's a big drawing. The one on the right is small, but with a small putty knife. These were my sketches for the Nazi zombie cover that I did for a Kickstarter project from some friend. And they were done in it's a Sennelier sketchbook. And just with the gel pen and crayons with a little white acrylic for the smoke. So again, drawing is everything, man. And, you saw, like, how, yeah, like, I get it wasn't a great drawing by any stretch of the imagination, that drawing of my buddy Scott, but the thing is that you got to put up or shut up. You got to be able to put this stuff down and go. There's so much drawing involved in a comic book. The amount of work is mind blowing. And that's a real shocker for a lot of people who've maybe never done a comic. People outside of comics, like I've used my books. I'll take a book and I use it as a portfolio. Well, here's what I do. Boom, I can lay that on people. And I remember art directors were looking at it, going, "So wait a minute." They were like, "Are you rich?" I'm like, "What do you mean? You must have made a fortune off this." I'm like, "No. I got a living wage. It's a lot of work for very little money." But it was a labor of love. I love comics, and I had a lot of freedom. That's That's the payback, right? The more freedom you get, the less money you make. The more money you make, the less freedom you have. They're paying you big money to tell you what hoops to jump through. That's the way it works. But they were like, wow, but this amount of work, if an illustrator that did this amount of work would be rolling in dough. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's not the way it works in comic books. And they said, okay, but so an art director put all this together? I'm like, no, I did all that. The artist does all that. What? Like they really can't wrap their head around this idea that, you came up with all this stuff. You told this story. That blows their mind because that would be an editor's job and an art director's job to tell you, oh, I don't want that image. I want this image and whatever. But that's all you as an artist in comics. So more, there's mummies, more mummies. Again, like here, these are fun. Blind contour, that's Francis Vallejo. But I didn't look at my paper and see, the only way I could do that was I could feel what's happening. So that was a blind drawing. He's over here and I'm like, just seeing what happens, and that one came out actually pretty good, right? And then and that one too of Dustin Darnault. Man, I was on that day, right? But then you do other ones and it's like, they're like Picasso's. There's an eye over here somewhere and there's an ear down here and, but they're fun. It's fun to do that because you're training yourself. And that's what life drawing is all about. You're training your hand, your eye to see something and your hand to feel and I'm using that the way I was taught. It's feelings. You're feeling these things. This input from your eye through your heart to your arm, and you feel it. You put it down, and you know where you are roughly. You can look, that's fine, but it's an emotional thing. And that's the whole point of doing of eyeballing and drawing. That's why you want to do it because you get better and better and better at drawing. So these are all, life drawings. Now this one is not. I actually wish I had that, but I almost brought that sketchbook. But that's a free brush drawing. I didn't pencil anything beforehand. I had a great photo reference from Frank Schoonover, one of Howard Pyle's students, on his trip to Barbados, which they have made public. Really cool photos. And I sat there and I took my time, and I did it all straight with this pen. I had two of them, just like today. I have one that's out of ink and one that's full of ink. And I was able, these lines you see here, that's the dry brush. And then, that's the full brush, putting this stuff down. These lines are more of the full brush. That stuff. This here, you see the split hairs, right? Split hair brush. To give that feeling of that thatched roof. And again, see this textural stuff that comes through that can be great information that you're giving your viewers on that things are made out of different stuff, right? It's the struggle I have with my oil painting students. Everything looks like it's made out of plastic. It all looks the same. It's like, they're wearing a shirt that has a texture. Their pants are a different texture. Their skin is a different texture. Their hair, and it's like getting them to go to that place to start understanding that you have to manufacture this stuff. It's a different world, So again, like this is a small little sketchbook, but just a deadline drawing of that model, but no penciling, no setup. It's like, I'm just going to go for it, man. Whatever happens, happens. But you want to train yourself so you can see that clearly what's going on in front of you, right? Because time is money. If you want to go to that professional place, time is money. And if you're struggling with drawing, you ain't going to make it. You got to be able to do it. Put up or shut up when they say put up or shut up. All right? I need you to deliver this now. Oh man, but I'm waiting for the muse. No, that doesn't work. They don't believe in the muse. They believe in put your ass in the chair, get it down. Do it now. I needed it yesterday. that kind of thing. In my drawing of John Foster. That's on the subway. Yeah, do it now. I need you to be creative now. Turn it on. Go. It's like, oh, and these are, yeah, and this is like a subway. Oh, actually, I'm waiting on Dr. Dunn. I was in the doctor's office. This is on the subway. Huh. I don't know if you know George Swerko Goditsky. That's him. I gave my students a 3-hour assignment. They're like, oh my God. They flipped out. They had to do it in class, bring a final, do a final. Mobius goes to Disney, I don't know. Coffee shop stuff, that's Bill Cobb. Coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop. Animals. My model at school, one of, posing, that the top right, the girl, that's a student. That's Carl posing in class. Charles Valsecchi. Charcoal. So a sketchbook is vital to me. It keeps me drawing. This is on a high-speed train from from Belgium, Brussels to Paris, and I was drawing the landscape out the window as it flew by, really quickly using crayons. I drew with my fountain pen, and then I came in with fountain crayons, and then I did white gel pen on top of that. Same here. So they were more impressions. It was like, oh, what was that? Okay, let me get it down. Uh, Rodin at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. My daughter with gel pens. This is fun. This is using a brush with that water-soluble graphite, laying it down. Pretty cool. Never used it before. These are fun. Take an etching plate, roll it up full, lay a sheet of paper on it, draw on the back of a sheet of paper, peel it off, and you get that print. You get one. Anywhere you touch the paper, as you can see on this one, see those fingerprints? Prints everywhere you touch. So, yeah, and these are actually larger. They're not in sketchbooks. These are done from life with paint rollers, 15-minute poses. Like really, and also I think maybe not on these. I do a thing with my students where I limit the number of strokes they can use. It's like you can do 10 black strokes. They can't be more than 4 inches long, and you can have 5 white strokes. You know, and they're like every stroke counts, and they're like, oh my God, how do I make this look like something in those few strokes? But you really, so man, they got to really think about every mark really matters. And these are from life with the rollers, 15-minute poses. Sumi brush drawing there. So here you go. This is, I wish it was the right way around. That's both of those are putty knife drawings, and they're 18 by 24 inches. The bottom part down there on the bottom one, the right one, is a roller, but the figure itself is done with a putty knife and black acrylic. That gives you an idea. There's the pencil drawing on the flip side of the print that came from it. So I hovered and drew and then used my finger to rub in this area behind back here. You can kind of see where you can see it ghosting through a little bit. So this is a good example here of, I was showing you those splatters and you can see the white acrylic and all that stuff, but then this is scanned as line art and you can see how graphic it becomes. That's my little cartoon character I do of myself. Um, for journal, I did a whole strip that way at one point, but mostly it's the way I'll just kind of do like memoir, journalistic stuff for myself. That was when my dad was ill, was a brain tumor. And that's dad in the hospital and stuff. Well, that little drawing gets around, right? Um, my friend Scott Hanna, he's an inker for Marvel in DC. That's it. That was his studio in Brooklyn, which is long gone. Done with a fountain pen. This is all rollers and a brush for like that whole little bit of the collar. That's a brush, but mostly it's a roller. Monotype. So, you're painting on a piece of metal, and anywhere you want light, you're wiping paint off. So you can see like that came in with a brush and wiped out these highlights and stuff. This is at the morgue, drawing from cadavers, pencil drawings. And then the Iceman, pen and ink. My son, my daughter. Seventh Seal movie. The Duelists over here, Ridley Scott's first film. Apocalypto. Mountains of the Moon. That's a great movie. So, you should always have a sketchbook on. You should be drawing all the time. If you're not drawing all the time, you're doing it wrong. Um, draw, 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 draw. And if you don't like drawing, maybe this isn't the business that you should be in. There's an aspect of every Game of Thrones of my teacher Baron Story talked about zero time. And zero time is like when you sit down, you start working on something, and when you look up, 8 hours, 12 hours has gone by. You had no clue that time just took off. That's sort of the state that you want to get to, because that means you're really focused and you're actually you're in a happy place, right? So the way you get there is by doing a lot of it. You know, the more you do, the more invested you become, the more you can lose yourself in the work, which is what should be happening. It's the place you want to get to. It's the happy place. It's where you've really connected with the joy of doing all this, you know. And yeah, is it hard? Damn straight it's hard. You know, and I always tell students, it's like, you know, one, anybody who's doing the arts should get a medal because it's so frustrating. It's so, well, it is. It's constant frustration, you know, of like falling down and getting up and falling down and getting up, and we keep doing it, you know. And most times too, you're doing it. It's not about the money, right? There's no amount of money that makes that kind of frustration worthwhile. And it's like funny. I tell students, I'm like, you know, like they keep talking about job, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like you want to make money. Everybody wants to make money. Everybody has to have a job. I get it. But when I was in school, and you can see like the amount of like I never got paid for this, you know. I didn't get paid for this, you know. I didn't get paid for any of this, you know. It's not about the money, you know. It's a very specific way of life. It's you've heard the old axiom, you know, the joy is in the doing, the reward is in the doing. That's true. If you don't enjoy it, I don't understand why anybody would do it. It's like, it's the greatest job on the planet if you love it. It would be the worst job on the planet if you absolutely don't love drawing and painting. I mean, I don't, you know, why would anybody do it if they don't really love doing it? Because it's hard. It's incredibly hard. And comics is, I mean, illustration's hard. Comics are a whole other order of hard on top of that, from the amount of work that has to go into these things. And if you don't love it, man, I just, you know, there are other jobs. I always say, it's like, man, you know, there are other jobs where you don't have to show up mentally and physically. You can show up physically, you know. Do you want fries with that? And then you get the money and you go home and you leave it at the fast food place, or you shuffle paper wherever, you know, and you leave it and you live for the weekend and you make good money. And you can buy the Winnebago, and you can have the whatever weeks of vacation that you go on, and I'm not knocking those things at all. I'm envious of a lot of that, because it would be nice to not have to think about it sometimes. But I can't turn this off. You know, it's like it's a curse. It's like this weird curse. You know, when it's great, it's great. When it's not great, it's like the worst friggin' thing on the planet, because you can't turn it off. And you know, and I'm not talking about just comic book people. I'm talking about artists, photographers, dancers, you know, recording artists. You know, you can't turn it off. And I love when people go, "Oh, wow, you're so talented. You have a gift." It's like, this is the most expensive gift I've ever received. Like, I had to earn this gift. I had to work for this. This was not something that was handed to me. I had to work my ass off to be where I am, to have the skills that I have. And I'm not alone in that. It's everybody that's ever picked up a pencil, you know what I mean? Or a brush, or a guitar, or, you know, a camera, or or went through some dance moves. I'm sorry. This is not like God bestowed this on me. You know, maybe I had a predisposition to like things that were drawn. Okay. All right. But I had to go and earn this. And it was funny. My friend, John Van Fleet, really good artist, went to the dentist, and the dentist was like, you know, "Oh man, you know, you draw comics?" "Uh-huh." "What have you drawn?" "Well, I've done Wolverine. I've did the Batman. I've done this." "Really? Wow, that's cool. Hey, would you do a drawing for my kid?" And John's like, "Yeah, are you going to fix my teeth for free?" And the guy got really pissed off at him. He's like, "I can't believe you're." John goes, "Look, I went to art school. I paid more than you did to learn what you learned. Like you went to dental school. I paid twice as much money to go to art school as you did to go to dental school, and I had to bust my ass to learn this shit. Am I going to get a free crown today? You know, because you love dental work, right? You love it, right? I mean, it's like playtime for you. That guy got really pissed off at him, and John's like, you know, this is work. This is work, you know? Unbelievable that people, yeah, you know, because everybody would love to do this. Yeah, man, because it is. I love watching people draw. It is. When other people do it, it's magic, man. You know, it's like they make it look so freaking easy. I'm like, wow, why can't it be like that for me, you know? But so people see that and I understand that feeling, you know, like, wow, that's so cool, because it is cool, you know? But, you know, Jimi Hendrix, he slept with his friggin' guitar, you know? He played 10,000 hours of busting it, bloodying his fingers. And, you know, he didn't just wake up and start playing guitar, you know? And it's the same for everybody. The 10,000 hours rule, you know, Bobby Fischer didn't wake up and all of a sudden was a genius at chess. He played 10,000 games of chess, you know? And this is the same thing. And it's like, man, it's a lot of work. But you love it, right? I mean, it's your life, right? So anything is worth it. Anything, the amount of hard work is worth it, because I love it. But man, it's not that it doesn't come with a lot of hardships and a lot of struggle. So get ready, you know. You fall off that horse, you get back on it. You keep doing it. You keep doing it. We keep taking crap. You keep doing it. There's Bert Silverman when I was at his studio. Amazing, wonderful painter. George Carlin had died, and there's Baron Story. There's another Bert Silverman. That's another 6-foot oil on the right. That's my sketchbook drawing that it came from. Mobius on vacation. These were letters I wrote to my then girlfriend, later to be wife. You know, I would make fun of her family who were from Tennessee. I'm sure that endeared me to her, you know. This is fun. This is like the cardboard backs of my drawing pads, and using those, you know, whiteout. And you remember those crappy brushes in whiteout? That's what I'm drawing with, using whiteout. Let's just see what I can get out of a whiteout brush, right? Doing these funky faces, just painting the light. It's kind of fun. So yeah, so sketchbooks are where you give yourself permission to fail, to explore, to experiment, to try things. You're not trying to impress anyone. You don't ever have to show your sketchbook to anybody. To be shown someone's sketchbook is like an amazing privilege, I believe. You know, it's a privilege to be able to look at, because that's the stuff. That's where they're letting their hair down, generally. Although, you know, you look at, people got the wrong impression from James Jean's sketchbooks. The guy's a genius. You know, he was able to just do this stuff. And everybody's like, so there are people who keep a sketchbook for their sketchbook. And they come up, oh yeah, now they do the finished thing. And it's like, yeah, check out my sketchbook. That wasn't a sketch. That's not a sketchbook. That's a finished, beautiful piece of art. That's great, but get off of it. You know what I mean? Like, show me that. Show me the one where you did it all, figured it out before you went to the finish. That's your sketchbook. So it's taken on this other thing now, but it's like, no, sketchbook should be where you're not trying to impress anyone. You're trying to let your hair down, fall flat on your face, fail gloriously, because that's where you learn stuff. You know, you stretch your abilities. These things were done for Warner Brothers for the George Clooney movie, the Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze film. They were put on Taco Bell cups and things like that. And it was great. I was able to talk them into sending me the bus that they make of the actors. I was like, can you send me those? Can we get those so I can light George Clooney? And they were like, I don't know that. So man, they brought him, an armed guard brought him in to DC Comics, and they stood outside the room while I took them into the room and photographed them, and it was like crazy. But so I've got these cool photos of, where I was able to light George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that was pretty fun. So again, it's like I get in a sketchbook and man, it's playtime. I want to have fun. I want to like really learn to up my game, get my drawing abilities down even more. Here's traveling, over the wing of the airplane. Concal, that's where Sargent painted the oyster gatherers. Um, Standing in front of Egon Schiele's painting at the Österreich Museum, at the Versacrum building in Vienna. Venezuela, sitting out on and this is, that's Rio, Sugarloaf Mountain. And there, yeah, there's the Christ statue in Rio. My daughter sleeping on the plane, my son playing on with his Game Boy, whatever. Scott Hampton asleep on our signing tour through Germany. And this is all art school stuff. The guy I was telling you about, John Van Fleet, that's him when we were in art school. Easter holiday, 1983. Brush drawing. Like going hard after Jeff Jones. There you go. So sketchbook's important. You should have one on you all the time, and an arsenal of whatever you like to draw with. But I push people to like experiment. Like don't just. But I love drawing with my. Okay, I love drawing with these too. But the thing is that you get comfortable. And all of a sudden you're drawing on autopilot, and that's. While it's great because you're in the zone, but what happens is you get complacent. So, if I'm drawing with this and all of a sudden it's clicking, it's like, oh, time to switch. So I'll go to, I don't have it on me, well, a crayon, a blunt thing that cannot do what this does. So all of a sudden the language that I was using, the visual language, the mark making voice, this won't go there. Oh shit. I've got to now come up with a new language. I've got to create a new language that works with this. How do I tell people about things with this now? Okay, big shift. Then I get comfortable with this. I go, okay, well, man, time to bust out one of these, maybe the parallel pen or a pencil, right? Or a brush pen. Something that throws the game totally off its axis and forces me to deal. To keep me on my toes, to all of a sudden like, okay, wow, I can't go into autopilot. I've got to really be here. I have to be here and think about and really communicate with this thing I'm drawing, right? That's really vital. I urge you to do that because you're gonna grow in leaps and bounds, and you're gonna discover a lot of things about yourself that you didn't know that you missed or that you had. That's the way to go.